Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
everything looks great.
All right, great. Welcome back, everybody. Sorry to cut conversation short. So we're going to talk about handicapping changes, and we have the lovely and talented Owen with us.
Fritz Meyer. Okay, so we have two really easy changes. These are the ones I call the checkbox changes. I'll start with the second one. That's coming next year. One of the things I do in my free time, because I'm the most boring person on the planet, is I go to other perf regions and I read their rules. And I go check out boat manufacturers and I start looking and going, what is it? Why? Oh, they've all done it. Geez, we should probably do it too. Yeah, I won't get into lemming theory, but at any rate, carbon fiber mats, when they first came out, remember when sailboats first came out, all of the hulls were really, really thick glass. My Tanzer 22 had a 1-inch thick hull. My CNC 30 Mark II, when I had it, also had a 1-inch thick hull with a core in it. I am fearful of what the actual weight of my J-boat is, but it was really pathetic. My whole J-boat weighs as much as the keel on my 30 Mark II did. So anyway, carbon fiber masts, like these things, were made thick. They thought they were heavy. Turns out, yeah, they're not nearly as beneficial as people thought. So we're going to take the penalty from 6 to 3 seconds. Now, the other one is an interesting one. We're not going far enough, but we had to do something. With the advent of electric propulsion, we're going to look at this in more depth for keel boats, inboards, and all of that, because you have to think of what's going on. You've got anywhere from a 250 to 500 pound piece of cast iron in the middle of the boat, and a fuel tank that, you know, if you're a smart racer, you're sailing with just enough to keep the sludge from, as opposed to a full tank. But when you get into electric propulsion, it's a fixed amount of weight, and you can start going, oh yeah, it would be really good if these were deep in the keel. We got to look at that. There are a couple people out there like the J9 that recently came out, and a few years ago I stepped on a J88. They had some ocean bolts on them and battery propulsion, and the battery technology is just going wild as well. And then you have issues like, you know, is it enough high T? I think it's next door. A J112E is electric propulsion as well. We did that a few years ago. You can start optimizing the battery position. But this is supposed to catch people who are using inadequate horsepower. So you go, hey, I'm racing my boat. I want to get it out to the course. I can sail once I'm past my harbor mouth. I'm putting a little, you know, trolling motor on. And the trolling motor generally is not enough to get you up to 0.9. So hull speed on a boat is a displacement boat is 1.36 times the square root of waterline and length. We were at 2/3 of that. So my own J80, you could go out with I think a 50 or some odd pound trolling motor and a battery and get it in and out and meet this. You'd probably get killed if anything horrible happened. This will allow most people who want to put a torpedo on their back of their outboard powered boat not to be caught, but it's going to catch people who have decided, oh no, I want to get that full 12-second credit for having 2 spoons as a propeller on the back of my boat. Yeah, it's usually in conjunction with an atomic 4 or someone else that's gone out and decided, the trolling motor is the way to go. We just want to raise that a bit. Remember, this is a protestable item. If you see a boat, you hear the engine going, yeah, or whatever, and it doesn't look like it moves very well, you can go chat with your handicapper or race committee and get it protested. Can we flip slides? Now, here, so that covers this year. That's kind of admin. We'll do more work on it. It's in section 5 of the manual. Next slide, please. There we go. Here's the one that is a little harder because we have to do programming changes in our master model as opposed to the handicappers model. I mean, that Diana, myself, or Adam can do in half an hour. It's easy. But our good friends at Perf Midwest, when they were Lake Michigan, had a table with a variable sprit credit. We started using 6 seconds. But as we looked at stuff, Hugh will, the handicapper over at AB, I'm walking down the dock with him, and this kind boat owner with a 40-footer, which said, the 6 seconds isn't enough. I put an ASIM on and I get killed in every race. Well, that's why I have this over 350 and 12-second credit. Last year I did a race where it was right at the fringe of how deep I could go with my ASIM. And I was watching all the sim boats go 10, 15 degrees deeper than I could. So our average wind speed for races on the lake is about 8 knots. This one was about 8 knots, Adam. And we've decided if you're below 9, these are full-out sports boats that were designed to have an ASIM on. Bucket. The 90 to 150, those are a little. Average boat is 6 seconds. The majority of my boats fit in that bucket, but we've added some more time to boats that will not fit as much on that 6 seconds, so that they have error time in a wind relief race at 8 knots where they can't, that extra 15 degrees where they have a sim. This is a measure we believe will add some more equity and get more people to fly spinnaker because the ratings are fair. No, an ASIM is so easy to use. You know, if I really want to test my sailing ability, I go out on a. Being the terrible sailor I am, I stick on my ASIM boat. Next slide, please. Okay, point to point. We started this project probably 5 or 6 years ago, and our whole idea was to get a different rating system together that followed the roots of our regular windward leeward that would better deal with boats that were optimized or designed or just perform better when they go off the wind than in a pure windward leeward race. So what we said was, what have we got in our toolbox already? So we had a wind study we did. We had something that we want to be simple. We had the work that Jim Teeters did for us on the offsets between flying and non-flying. And we also had a target. It's great to have one design boats in the world because then you don't have to worry about people's rating systems, scoring systems, penalty tables. And our good friends at ORC provide very open data. So you can go onto their website and download every one design boat you can imagine. And we have a number that are thick pockets on Lake Ontario. So let's see what we could do. Next slide. So we did a couple of things. So as you recall, someone asked about the 650, 550 alternate formula. That is something we like using during daytime races where the wind isn't dying. Because as you recall, the data that comes in, that gets analyzed, is mainly from our club racing with a bit of interclub. And in the interclub, we can see where this stuff kind of shows up. So what got put together was we're going to use the 650 over 550. We use our windward leeward time on distance number, so the number on your certificate. We take off the centerline credit. Because what happens is when you start going off wind, you look at any set of performance curves for something like, I don't know, a J80. And I can tell you when I take that thing off wind with a spinnaker, it begins to fly. So I really don't need the 6 seconds I get for it. And then what we did was we used the offset between the windward leeward and the general purpose handicap provided by Teeters, which on average, if you take the whole fleet of boats, drops it by 15 seconds per mile. So my particular boat, my windward leeward TOD is 126 ASP. I strip, or 123, sorry, we knocked that 3 seconds this year. Gives me 117, and then I knock off of that another 21 seconds. So I'm now at 96 seconds per mile, but that's okay because most of the rest of the fleet dropped by 15 too. And then I run it through the 650, 550 formula, and I've got a nice compressed number that matches what's going on very well with the all-purpose 10-knot wind speed ORC rating. So that is our point-to-point formula. It is super simple. It uses everything in our toolbox. All it cost us was a couple of meetings, some brain cells, and a few other things. And this should get us way closer than using our daytime dying wind formula. Next slide, Diana, if I have one. Yeah, we're going to get race results. The chair from Mimico who's doing the race to Kingston, I have all the results for that kicking around. I've done them in regular 650, 550, and at the time proposed point to point. And surprisingly, you know, there were changes only in the middle of the fleet and they were minimal. So it's really Excel. You know, I have a 700 square foot spinnaker. If I'm just slightly off wind with that thing, pretty hard to touch, but dead downwind, I get killed because I can't do that extra 15 degrees. So what we need to do with this is Diana has put together a calculator. All of these items should be live on our website now or tomorrow. They're live. You can go take a look. We will publish a table of the offsets. Plus, we have a downloadable calculator that has them built in. This, we're doing the same for when we're for flying sails as we are for non-flying sails. So make it nice and simple. What we need to do this year before free flying head sails and stuff like that, that'll be another adjustment when we can bake it into the model and agree on the penalty scale. When we can agree on the penalty scale. Sorry, I usually don't have a microphone in my mouth. I'm a big enough loud mouth for everyone. We're going to keep the sail plan identical to your windward leeward. So if you're going out racing or something, doesn't mean you can go pull your code 0 out. And when I say code 0, I mean a sail with a mid-girth below. If you really want to do that, you'd end up measuring it as a chute, but because, or a Genoa, but because it isn't attached along the force, they're not legal. If you see one, or you think you see one, protest it. We're not going to stop. It's a Corinthian sport. It relies on the honesty of the sailor, skippers, and crew. If you see something you do not believe is legal, be a good sailor, tap him on the shoulder. Adam does this, taps him. Probably shouldn't have been doing that. And a good person will say, oh, okay, I see. I will pull my... But if they... Right. And the other one is we have to chat with our race organizers, because that windward leeward time on time corrected number is far more generous than the point-to-point one. When I said you're already knocking 15 seconds on average off of that TOD, you'd go, oh, wow, that's much. You can't mix them. You either have to have an entire fleet running point-to-point, or you have to have a fleet running windward. If you want to get, do I have one more slide, or was that the last one? Yes, that was the last one. If you want to get most of the benefits of the point to point, but really don't want to do all of the extra little tweaking work, take the 650 over 550. You will still, I hate to say it, put a bit more bias into boats with large ASIMs on the front. This is supposed to pull that bias out, because you have to remember that this year, if you put a sprit on the front of your boat, 15% or less of your JSP as rated, you can put a 210% spinnaker on, not the standard 180. That works out to quite a bit of extra sail area. And if you can manage it off wind, yeah, this is supposed to fix this stuff. It's a starting phase. It's simple. It's something I think people can understand, that we can bake into our processes, and hopefully make sail racing on distance races as fair and reliable, as transparent as possible, as they are for our windward leeward. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Owen. Next up, we have Adam. So as you can tell through these conversations, we have very talented individuals, both highly involved in the sailing, but also intellectual engineers and such who give a lot of thought to how this all works out. Again, our purpose is to be as transparent as possible and have this work out. So no further ado, Adam has some good information to share.
Well, some of my thunder was already stolen by Owen, but I hope I can a few more details here. First of all, what do we call free-flying head sail, and why do we need to worry about it? Sail designs, you have normally head sail, traditionally understood as jib, Genoa, and then you have a spinnaker, and very little discussion is needed to understand what is what. Well, just for first approach, a jib and a Genoa is attached to a forestay. In our environment, I'll touch a little bit what else is there out in the, but in our type of sailing, traditional displacement boats, single hull and all that, the head sail is understood to be attached to the forestay. It's not fried because it's fixed on the forestay, and then you just pull on one corner to trim it. So anything that's not attached to the forestay is free flying. It has only 3 corners attachment points to it, to the boat. And when you're looking at the official technical documentation, and that's represented by IMS, ERS, and also the RRS, the Racing Rules of Sailing, they are free-flying head sail that have mid girth, 55% to 75% of the foot, is not a spinnaker. These sails have different designations by different sail makers. Some sail makers say, I'll cut you a code 0, or you go to North Sails and they show you pictures of code 55, code 65. These all relate to the mid-girth measurement. Now, just stop for a moment. Mid-girth measurement is very different from the traditional head sails, jibs and Genoa, where you're measuring the LP. The LP is measured from the clew perpendicular to the forestay. And you take a tape, tie it at the clew, and then you just make an arc, and the shortest arc touching the forestay will give you the LP measurement. The spinnakers are measured differently. The spinnakers are measured by the mid-girth, which is the connecting length between the luff, mid-luff, and the mid-leach, laid out flat on the floor. And we now have the same definition for both the symmetrical and asymmetrical sail. And so the mid-girth measurement, if it is less than 75% of the foot length, then it is no longer a spinnaker in our definition. It is a free-flying head sail. And at the moment in perf, we are unable to handicap it. We have no formulas in the book or tables in the book. And so we treat it as an illegal sail. This is what Owen was referring to. If you see somebody that seems like flying a sail like that, ask. And sometimes people can produce a sailmaker certificate, and sometimes, oh, sorry, I will measure or will not take this case.
So this is for free flying head sails that are attached somewhere ahead.
He needs to have a microphone.
Hold on.
A free-flying head sail, yeah,
It has to be, so a free flying head sail has to be attached, not attached to the head, the forestay, and has to be a forward of the forestay as well.
3 points.
3 points.
3 points. Now, a good question, because we have a typically used to sail that we call stay sail, which is also not attached to the forestay. But that sail is usually smaller than the largest head sail.
Yes.
And that's fine. We have no problem allowing a stay sail flown without extra penalty.
Except if I take that stay sail and put it in front of the forestay, and then it becomes a free flying
And
head
it
sail,
becomes correct.
even though it's smaller.
Correct. Now, this is a very good moment that I should bring something up. If anybody watches the ocean race of the world, they do not have our kind of spinnaker at all. They have these various sails. They call them J1, J2, J3, which is more like a jib. But they also have an A1, A2, A3, A0, code 0. And those sails all have a stiff luff. Now, here comes the difficult question. Something that's attached to the forestay is not a free-flying sail. But something that is not attached to the forestay, but still flies on a stiff hoist, is really a code sail that we at PERF at the moment cannot handicap. So what we are saying is that our system of handicap is a little bit in the times. We are a little bit behind the IMOCAs and the Volvo 70s and all that. But we don't really have them on our boat, on our lake. So we have a bit of time to learn about it and trying to figure out how to handicap it. Now, is there anything else that I want to say?
Adam, can I just jump in on one quick point on it? Don't lose sight of the fact of how people seek advantages and modify the rules. We all love to try and find shortcuts where possible. On a free-flying head sail that measures 75% or larger, but that you can fold the luff in and Velcro attach it and get it out of the way so that all that extra sail's not in the way, that then doesn't create, that's not how it's to sail. It's sailed not in the function that it's designed, and it's no longer a spinnaker. So make sure the spinnakers function and act like spinnakers, and genoas function and act like genoas, to save the aggravation of everybody getting mad at one another, right? We're trying to keep, our goal is that the handicappers aren't the striped shirts to keep this all in. Again, as pointed out, it's a self-regulated piece, and people can't dump onto the handicapper to go, here, you go fix that problem for me. But be mindful of what you're looking at and make sure we're looking at in the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish. Okay.
It's just in addition to that, lately you could read at North Sales and maybe other sail makers too. They have these cable design, I think.
Torlux, yeah.
It's an interesting concept where the load bearing is not going through the luff, but rather somewhere through the forward part of the sail. So when they tighten that, it gives you a nice knuckle up front. Now, with the right design, they can make it such that it qualifies as a spinnaker because there's an extra cloth in there. But again, it's a twist on our normal traditional club racing scene. I don't see it anywhere amongst the competitors out on the race course for the moment. So that's another twist in there.
If someone has
Hold it, wait.
Microphone?
if someone has a free flying head sail that measures AMG 70, is it illegal?
At the moment, it is legal. And it's handicapped as per our manual, no problem.
Even though you can sail it much higher than any spinnaker that's that big.
Though that's the rule that we live by.
Okay.
We haven't changed. Now, good point that you raised. Again, there is literature around where they claim that, well, it should really be 85% the break point between handicapping a head sail as a spinnaker or as Genoa. We will have lengthy discussions in Central Council about that and collect information, talk to sail makers, talk to naval architects, and look at other handicapping areas, how they treat those boats. But technological progress is going on, so we have to keep up with it some form.
Are we taking questions or?
I can take questions.
Yep. Do you have an online question?
Yeah, I have somebody who raised their hand.
Okay. Who we got?
Hi, my name is Jeff Cole. Can you hear me okay?
Yep,
Yeah.
we're here. Good, Jack.
All right. On this topic, I am one of the boat owners who owns a boat which was designed to be equipped with a Code Zero sail. It is part of it's a newer design. It's one of quite a number of newer boats that are being manufactured. We are seeing the industry and designs as a whole shift to Code Zero sails being offered by factories on new boats. We will see more and more of these boats arriving in the Lake Ontario basin. Do we have a project underway with a timeline in order to establish a rating system for these Code Zero sails? The reason being is right now, my boat, I can only sail with 2 of the 3 sails that the boat was designed to be sailed with. You know, as an analogy, imagine if we said, well, to all the ketch and yawls, no, mizzen sails are not allowed. The boats are fundamentally designed to use these sails. So I'd like to put forward the position that it's important that we move ahead with developing a rating system so that the newer boats can be sailed the way they're meant to be sailed.
Okay, I'll take a quick shot at it and then I'll hand over to Adam for the right answer. But our system is lined up to deal with windward leeward. So a Code Zero functionally won't help you in a normal windward leeward race. And then for a point to point or some other, or where the course shifts for the course of the day, then that sail changes its functionality. But for our windward leeward, it doesn't necessarily fit the modality in which we're functioning. But you're right, the world is shifting, and when we are attempting to catch up. So Adam will give you the right answer now.
Yes, and there's nothing wrong with what we heard. Essentially, I don't care if you have a Code Zero on board in your boat. Even if you fly it windward leeward, you will not get very good results. I've seen it. I watched it a number of times when people are experimenting. But we are now putting in serious effort to come up with point-to-point handicapping. And we are considering that the so-called Code Zeros below 75% girth will have an option to get an extra certificate to race with those sails in the point-to-point races. Does that answer your question?
I guess the other point of it is the reason their code zeros are popular is given shorthanded or short crewed, it makes it a little bit easier. It makes the boats function well. Something else that we're observing when we looked at our observed performance is we have boats who are sailing in their main and jib or main and genoa configuration, sailing observed performance faster than the same boat sailing in its spinnaker configuration. And that same boat in its spinnaker configuration is sailing slower than the rating for the main and jib. So if you follow, they're inversed. So the main and jibber is going around the race course faster by a significant margin than the spinnaker boat. The code zeros are intended to make sail handling and functionality of the boat better, more enjoyable, and all that stuff. We're not trying to stand in the way of progress. We just have to figure out how way to make sure that it works well for everybody.
I would like to add just a small detail that we are struggling with at the moment. Certain one design classes allow a smaller size spinnaker in their one design sail inventory. And that sail is smaller than 75% of the girth. Well, I think we already had a talk about saying that when a one design boat is sailing in a perf fleet, that boat has to conform to the perf rules. And the perf rules do not allow these smaller flying sails. And it doesn't matter that it's not helpful when you do windward leeward. We just want to make sure that we have our two options easily managed in perf. And one is the automatically generated point-to-point certificate, which will be printed on your regular certificate and can be used as is in a point-to-point race, as opposed to what I mentioned previously, the optional free-flying hat sail certificate, which will be over and above the regular perf certificate that everybody has. Does that answer some of the pending questions?
Okay. Any other?
When you're racing under point to point, then should you use the alternate formula
Yes.
for correction?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Because those races are usually done during the day. And the conditions, as we research, will provide a better race result.
And is it still based on 6 miles to be considered?
I think that's a present rule. Yes.
Plus, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any questions in this room right now? And any hands up in the Zoom area?
Jeff Cole.
Okay.
Jeff Cole.
Jeff Cole, go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, thank you for the response to my question about code zero sales. I'm not clear when we will be able to have a certificate that would allow us to use a code zero sail, a free flying head sail in a point-to-point race. Is that something available for the 23 season or some future season? I'm looking for a schedule.
No, it is not available for this year. It will be somewhere in the future, and we will appropriately announce it in an AGM so that the timing of it is brought in within our rules.
So some additional information on that comment. When things are introduced to perf, there is a schedule in which we can make changes, significant changes, where it needs to be brought forward to the AGM. All of the certificate holders have the ability to vote on it, and then it's implemented. So we aren't doing any knee-jerk reactions and tripping something into this year and then forcing everybody to either go buy in sales or do whatever. So we're trying to avoid that. We're trying to be pragmatic and practical, because the investment cost of doing these things is pretty high, and we're not trying to create an arms race for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evening out.
Is there another question?
Another question?
Trevor,
Trevor?
Trevor Whiteman.
Sorry, here I am. I guess I just want to get clear on the point to point because we'd had discussions previously on point to point. And my understanding had been that for the racing that we do, I'm a Nepean Sailing Club. For the racing that we do on the Ottawa River, the point to point was not going to be a very workable situation. Basically, the winds generally are less than 10 knots and the leg lengths tend to be rather short. So now that I've seen this point-to-point document that was just released today, which tells me that point-to-point handicap adjustments shall apply for any courses longer than 6 nautical miles, and the time correction factor will be used for scoring. And I'm not clear. Am I now supposed to put in or go and calculate point-to-point? And are we supposed to start using point-to-point on Lac de Chêne this year, 2023? Thank you.
But the straight answer to that is that it is always up to the organizing authority to put it in the notice what system they are going to be using for scoring. And so if your local organization decided that this is unsuitable, then you go with the old set of numbers. No problem there.
Okay. Any other questions on the?
No, because there's the list. They put up their hand.
Oh, okay. So,
If they want to put up their hand, they'll be on the top of the list for the questions.
anybody have other questions? We're looking at some names. Don't know if there are questions associated with
No, you'll see a little hand come up.
it. Okay. All right.
Just in closing, I put up this picture published by North Sails. These are just pictorial representations of their different kind of code sails. Basically, code 55 in my mind is like a Genoa. It's not nothing special. We have to handicap it that way.
Yeah, on a code 55 as example, it would be on a furler. So even though it feels and smells like a spinnaker, if you're going to tack the thing, furl it, spin and tack, just like they're doing on some of the Volvo boats and stuff like that. You're not going to lose you'll gain a lot of height and you'll just spin on the main and then get going again, and you unfurl it and you get going again. I mean, the new handling systems, again, are intended to make sail handling easier. And we're trying to kind of calculate that stuff. We're not here to discourage development. We're not here to make life miserable. We're not here to reward the person with the Red Wing 30 who's had it for 80 years and feels it's the best boat in the world. But it's their boat that they're racing, and they want to feel like they can be competitive against the, I don't know, I mean, we don't do foiling sails, we don't do catamarans, but against something fairly new and more modern. So
I just would like to throw in one last item that I believe is going to be up on our Central Council discussions, and that is the white sail boats might want to use Gennaker or some such sail, which is really smaller than a regular spinnaker. And we have yet to develop a kind of rule that would allow us to handicap those properly. But those sails still remain free flying. So they would have to sail in the spinnaker fleet.
yeah. Yeah, remember to measure the sails to ensure, even though we have something that says you only need to necessarily measure the largest, I think we've gotten away from that on measuring only you measure all spinnakers to ensure that they actually by definition meet spinnakers. Again, we're not calling anybody cheaters. Don't get me wrong on that. What we're saying is we need to make sure that it functions for the purpose for equality for everybody. So one of the things that we didn't do today as a training session, which has happened in previous training sessions, is actually lay down and done the technical of how you measure stuff. We can do that. We can have those conversations kind of here after the fact, because it's not going to help the people who are here on Zoom and figure that out, or make sure that your district person is there to assist and ensure that you're getting the right information and measuring in the right way. The other is, don't be shy to ask your certificate requesters. It's on their burden to provide the information. You are not You're not there to do their work. They own the boat. It's in their interest to ensure that their rating reflects it accurately, both for their rating purposes and to avoid any protests coming their way. Ask them for a sailmaker certificate. Some do it for free, some charge, some build it with the sail that comes with it. So, unburden yourself on some of that stuff. You don't make this your primary problem if you're the handicapper, but you're sitting here because you care about sailing and you want to support the sailors. Support them in the best way you can. Don't make their life miserable and trying to get in arguments with people the way that I do. So, you get the benefit of being nicer people. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so that's the end of Adam's piece. Questions and answers. Here we have some time. Should we have any other questions or answers? So you people on Zoom, the only thing that's keeping us from a beer is you. So choose your questions carefully, because I've been talking a lot and I'm thirsty. Now we'll take time. We're well ahead of schedule. We have more than enough time for questions. Should anybody want to have any questions? If it can be just about anything. If you're not confident or you don't feel this is the right venue to do it, please reach out directly to any individual, either your district or central council people. Okay, so back to Trevor. Question, Trevor.
Okay, so just a quick question. We have lots of experienced people that I think are going to help me as a new measurer up here, including Ron. I heard him on there, and Al. Anyway, just wondering if there are some measurement videos online that I could watch in advance of getting some of those folks to help me.
Yes, on the website, there's very good detailed videos on how to measure sails.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Oh. Sorry, so on our website, they're linked to, under handicapping, linked to ORC, and there's videos there. Illegal to fly it. Question was, free flying sails illegal to have on the boat or illegal to fly? You want to carry weight around or use it as a sleeping bag, knock your socks off, but it's sail weight. That changes things. Sorry, question, I can't see the name. Paul, please.
Yes, sorry, I couldn't get the unmute.
Yeah, no worries.
Mouse is a little jumpy. I would like to have a separate discussion offline with you, if you don't mind, regarding shoal draft versus standard draft. Our particular situation has to do with the fact that we had extra points for being shoal draft, and then suddenly they were removed. I have no understanding how that came about. What's the rationale? We wrote basically a complaint to you guys. Apparently you did not change. So I need to understand what possible logic was behind this.
So a couple of questions coming up are what class of boat? We don't necessarily need to know your boat, but what class of boat are we talking about?
It's a CNC 30 shoal draft, and you have a standard boat CNC 30.
Mark 1 or Mark 2 or Mark 3?
This is the very original. It's a second year of production, so it's a Mark 1.
Mark 1. Okay. All right. So what, to give you some more specifics that will be more applicable to your actual, specifically to you, I'll direct you to that Owen will connect with you. We'll find your Diana will have your email through your certificate, I hope. If not,
Yes.
Make sure we know it, and Owen can dialogue directly with you to ensure that any concerns you have are being addressed effectively.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Doesn't need an appeal, we just need to answer as well.
Yeah. Okay. The participation from the people on Zoom. Oh, is your hand up again, or you just didn't come down? No, I think we're good. Okay. All right. So really appreciate all of the people who participated remotely, as well as the people who drove through the rain, and thankfully no freezing rain to get here. This is a slightly different format than what we've used before. I can offer that our Bill Topping was our previous VP who was responsible for training. So this has been a hybrid of a lot of the work that he's done that were done in districts. When we kind of took a touring road show, we tried to find a way to amalgamate this information and share it with you in both in person and remotely. I think it's a good way to exchange information. There is some technical or practical information that makes it difficult or impossible to do this way. We've tried to bridge that with some online representation, and we will commit that the district handicappers will assist local handicappers, new and old, with assisting with that work. We do have a new VP that will be responsible for training, an individual by the name of Rob Lenter. So anybody who's from out in the Coburg area will know Rob. And he comes from an education background. So the pedagogy that will be applied will be very useful, and that will be ready for next year's rollout. So again, we remain committed to trying to make PERF relevant, successful for the majority of people. If it doesn't fit for everybody, it means we're probably doing most of it right. If it doesn't fit for everybody, it means we're only making one or two people happy. And usually that would be the PERF president with whatever good fancy rating for. But that's not the case here. I have a very standard boat in a Laser 28, so very happy to hear. So thank you very much, everybody, for signing in. Thank you to Allison, Diana, and Mike for pulling this together. And a special thank you to Tobacco Yacht Club for hosting us. Look forward to seeing everybody on the water.